Various types of home surveillance cameras have been around for many years. But when Dropcam released the original Dropcam back in 2009, this was really a game changer because this was really the first one of these kinds of cameras that had a whole new level of simplicity, reliability, and practicality that the other cameras just didn't have. The problem with the Dropcam, and by the way, the Dropcam is now the Nest Cam because Google bought the company, but the problem with this camera was that when you buy it, you get free cloud recording, but only for a limited amount of time. After kind of that introductory time slot, you then have to buy a subscription in order to continue to get cloud recording. If you don't buy the subscription, you'll still get push notifications on your phone when the camera gets triggered, and you can still do a live view through the camera to see what's going on, but it's not going to record anything. So shortly after that, along comes Netgear with the Arlo Q. Now Netgear's deal, or Arlo's deal, was that, hey, we don't want you to have to pay for a subscription. That's ridiculous. You buy our camera and we're going to give you free cloud recording for life. So with this camera, you get 7 days of free cloud recording, and you always will. You'll never have to pay a penny for your cloud recording. It records everything. And that is what got me to ditch my drop cams and switch everything over to Arlo. And these are the 3 cameras that I now use. So after the Arlo Q came out, they also had the Arlo Pro. This is actually the Pro 2, and then the Arlo Go. All 3 of these cameras come with the same 7-day lifetime unlimited cloud recording. And it's great. And it really does add up because currently with the Nest Cam, the entry fee, I guess you might call it, the entry subscription rate is $5 a month. Doesn't sound like much, except that, these cameras last a long time. Your camera might last 10 years. It's pretty easy to conceive that that would happen. If you do the math on that, that means that you're going to have paid $600 in subscription fees on your camera. That's ridiculous because you can go on Amazon and get the Arlo Q for about $147. And this thing will give you your free cloud recording 7 days worth for the rest of your life or as long as this camera lasts. So this is obviously the much better way to go, and that's the way I've chosen to go. So it sounds great. There's only one problem with Arlo regarding the cloud recording, and that is that last year Netgear spun Arlo off as its own company. And when they did that, I think Arlo got a little bit greedy. They decided that all new cameras going forward were no longer going to have the lifetime free cloud recording. Now these older cameras still have it. You can still go out and buy these today and you still get lifetime 7-day cloud recording free. But if you buy the new Arlo Pro 3, the new Arlo Ultra, or the Arlo Video Doorbell, those do not come with lifetime free cloud recording. You're going to have to buy a subscription to that. And I think that sucks. And because of that, I do not recommend that you buy any of those new cameras because frankly, the older models are great. These really do the job, and over its lifetime, it will save you a huge amount of money just to stick with these. You buy them once, you pay once, and you get the service for lifetime. So let's talk about each one of these, starting with the Arlo Q. Now, like I said before, the Arlo Q is currently about $137 on Amazon, which is a really good deal for one of these. It records 1080p video and it has two-way audio. And what that means is that in addition to recording audio, you can also talk back through your phone to the camera and it'll come out. So if somebody's robbing you, you can yell at them through the camera. Or if your dog is on the couch, you can yell at them through the camera. It's just a nice feature to have. The Arlo Q is really for indoor use only, and it is a wired camera. It does not run on batteries. So there's a little power plug here and has a power cord. It has to be plugged into a constant power source. The video transmission itself goes over Wi-Fi. There's also a version of the Arlo Q that has an Ethernet jack on it, so you can actually plug the camera directly into an Ethernet network. But generally speaking, you're going to want just the Wi-Fi version. Now, because it's hardwired, it's always on, and it's always recording. This has pros and cons. Now the pros is that it means it has a buffer of video before an incident occurs. So if somebody walks into the room, this thing will save a few seconds of what was going on before the person walked into the room. It shows you the entire timeline of what happened there. It doesn't just save or start recording when something is triggered. The downside is that because this thing is constantly sending a 1080p video signal to the cloud, it's using up your internet bandwidth. And that can be a problem if you have a whole bunch of these. Now, one of these is probably not going to even be noticeable, but if you had, say, 5 of these in your house, all uploading a 1080p stream, I would almost guarantee that you're going to notice that your internet is running a little bit slower. So I don't recommend you have a whole lot of these, but a couple of them probably won't make any real difference. So anyway, let's take a look at some of the video footage. This is off of one of my cameras. And as you can see, the wide-angle lens really does cover a huge area. And each clip starts before the incident occurs. So you see a few seconds of footage before I enter the room. That's always good to have. And the video quality is pretty decent. The bit rate could always be better to give you a cleaner image. That's a beef that I have with pretty much every camera in the world, whether it's one of these or action cameras or whatever. But the problem with increasing the bandwidth or the bit rate is that it's going to gobble up more of your internet bandwidth. So the better the video quality, the less internet you're going to have left to play with, because this is going to use more up. So I think that Arlo did a pretty good job of finding a nice balance between the data rate that's coming out of this and the video quality. So the Arlo Pro 2. Now, unlike the Arlo Q, the Arlo Pro 2 is completely wireless. This thing runs on rechargeable batteries, and the batteries in my case tend to last about 2 months, which is pretty good, I think. Now, that varies a little bit depending on the season and depending on how much traffic is going by. For example, in the winter when it's really cold out, the battery life is a whole lot less. I may only get, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks of battery out of this, but generally speaking, I get about 2 months of battery, which I think is pretty darn good. Like the Q, it has 1080p video, two-way audio, and the video quality, as you can see in this sample footage here, it's not quite as good as what you get out of the Q. The bit rate's a little bit lower, but that's really what you would expect out of a battery-powered camera. But it's still, I think, perfectly usable. I think the image quality is, for the money, great. Frankly, I think that it's perfectly acceptable, and I can usually identify everybody that comes to the door with these cameras. And these are the cameras that I have the most of. Matter of fact, of all 3 of these Arlo cameras, it's the Arlo Pro 2 that I would recommend over all of them. So what's great about these cameras versus the Q is that these are not doing anything 99.9% of the time. They are not constantly uploading data to the cloud, so it's not bogging down your internet. It only sends data when there is an incident that occurs. So whether it's motion detection or an audio detection, something that triggers the camera, it's the only time it sends anything up. So you can have tons of these laying around the house and nothing will happen. They're great indoors, they're great outdoors, and like I say, I have more of these than any of the other Arlo cameras. These are my go-to cameras now. A 2-camera Arlo Pro 2 system costs right now on Amazon about $282. That's $141 per camera. I think that's a really good deal considering that these still come with the free lifetime 7-day cloud recording. So, of all 3 of these cameras, this one is my favorite. Definitely recommend this one. I love this camera. It's essentially perfect for what I need. So moving on, we're going to talk about the Arlo Go. Now the Arlo Go is very similar to the Arlo Pro in many ways. It's completely wireless. They look kind of similar even though this thing's a whole lot bigger. But the main difference really is that this doesn't use Wi-Fi or base station or anything else. What this runs off of is a cellular LTE signal. So What's great about that is it means you can have this camera virtually anywhere. As long as there is an LTE cell signal, this camera will work. You can put this out in the middle of the woods. You can put this in your car, I guess as long as it doesn't overheat or something, but you can put it in your car. You can put it in a hotel room, which is what we often use it for. We bought this for our business. We go to trade shows and we set up there. This is very useful for us to have at trade shows, monitoring our booth. It's an all-purpose camera that you can just take anywhere and you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi. The problem with hotel Wi-Fi is that there's no way to connect any of these other cameras to a hotel Wi-Fi system. And that's because, as you probably know, when you go to a hotel and you log into their Wi-Fi, there's a whole complicated login procedure. You gotta enter your name, your room number, then you have to agree to terms of service. None of that's an option. You can't do that with these other cameras. There's just no physical way to set that up. But with the Arlo Go, it doesn't make any difference because you're not going to connect to their Wi-Fi network. You're going to just connect to the cellular network. So as long as you have a cell signal, this camera works great. Like I say, it's a bit of a specialty item, but for us and what we use it for in business, it's really, really good. Now the downside is, well, there are 3 different versions of this camera. There's an AT&T version, there's a Verizon version, and there's also an Arlo version. Now, whatever you do, do not get the Arlo version. The Arlo version comes with a very, very limited data plan. It's so limited that if you put this where there's any traffic at all, it's going to burn through that data plan like immediately. So do not get this camera. Either get the AT&T version or the Verizon version. If you're on Sprint or one of the other networks, you're kind of screwed, but hey, AT&T and Verizon, it works great. The only downside though is that it's not free, right? So this is an add-on device to your existing cellular plan. Now we have AT&T, we have the unlimited AT&T plan. AT&T, we had to go to their store, they put an AT&T SIM card in here, and it costs us $20 a month to have this thing as an add-on device to our mobile plan. It's pretty expensive, but it uses, the regular unlimited data plan that our phones use, so this camera can go all day long and we'll never run out of data. And since we're using it for business, we at least get to write that expense off. But it is very expensive. Arlo doesn't make a penny off of that though. Arlo does not charge for the cloud service. That's still free, just like I've been saying. You're just gonna have to pay AT&T because it is an extra device on your plan, which is a little bit of a bummer. So, the Arlo Go, other than that, the functionality is very similar to the Arlo Pro 2, same kind of motion sensitivity, very similar image quality. It works well. I'm pretty happy with it. When we're not traveling at trade shows, we just use this as an extra security camera around the house, hang it from a tree. It's just one extra level of security because if the internet at home goes down, it means all the other cameras go down. This thing, however, will just keep going as long as there's a cell phone signal. Now, just as important as the quality of the cameras is the quality of the app. Now, the Arlo app is really good, and it also has a really good website, so you can view all your cameras and view all your footage either on your computer or on your mobile phone. Either way, it works fantastically well. Let's take a look at how this works. So, with the Arlo app, when you launch it on your phone, you will see a list of all of your cameras. Now in my case, I've got 7 cameras here. And I can scroll around, I can see what the latest footage was off of each one. And if I tap the little play button, I can watch a live feed from the camera. It also gives me a little bit of information about battery level and stuff like that. Now, if you select the Library tab at the bottom there, it'll show you a listing of all of the video recordings from the last 7 days. You can view the clips, you can download the clips. There's also a filter option, so if you just want to see the clips from one specific camera, you can do that too. Overall, this works really quite well. Like I say, it shows you all 7 days of that free cloud storage that you get with all these cameras. Now, if you tap the Mode tab, this is where you set up your geofencing and your notifications. Now, what the geofencing does is it allows you to basically let it monitor the location of your cell phone. So you can set up a geofence around your house. When you leave the house, you can tell it, okay, activate these cameras. When I return home, deactivate these cameras, because maybe you don't want it recording every move you make inside your own home. But when you leave your home, you do want it to record. So that's what the geofencing is for. And the geofencing can be set up pretty much per camera, sort of. The problem is with the Arlo Pros. Because the Arlo Pros use a base station, all of the cameras on that one base station get configured the same way. You can't configure the individual Arlo Pros, just the base station that they're connected to. So if you want to geofence your base station, it means that every camera connected to that base station is going to work the same way. A little bit of a bummer, but not the end of the world. Additionally, you can set up how your push notifications work. You can set up schedules, or all sorts of things can be set up in this tab. So you can tell it, hey, this camera I want to be notified if something happens, this camera I don't. So for example, the way I have mine configured is that when I'm at home, I don't get notified about any of the cameras. Most of them are still recording when I'm at home, but I don't want to hear about every motion that I make. But the one that I do want to know about is the one at the front door. So I will have my Arlo Pro 2. This one is basically always on and full on mode. So when somebody comes to the front door, my phone will notify me before the doorbell rings. Now, the biggest issue that I have with Arlo in general is this. They only allow you to have 5 cameras on your account, at least for free. If you want more than 5 cameras, then you have to get one of their subscription plans. That basically means that Arlo is penalizing people for buying more of their products. This seems ridiculous to me. So if I buy 5 cameras, I'm good. But if I want a 6th camera, I now suddenly have to buy a subscription. But not really. It ends up that there's a way around this, and it's really kind of stupid. So yes, you can only have 5 cameras on one account, but there's absolutely nothing preventing you from making multiple accounts. And you can share cameras between accounts. So here's what I've done. So in the house here, I have 5 Arlo cameras. But then I have another house. I have a ranch house. And at that house, we have 2 Arlo cameras. So what I did is I put the 5 cameras here on the main account. Then I created another dummy account, and I registered those 2 cameras with that dummy account, and then I shared those 2 cameras with the main account. So now when I go into the Arlo app or I go onto the website, I see all 7 cameras. And I generally have almost full control over the shared cameras. Now, I don't have complete control, but I can turn them on and off. I can set schedules and modes and all that stuff. But some things don't work. Sometimes, like for example, when you're setting up the camera, you do have to physically log into that dummy account in order to set up the camera and align it and do some of the basic setup stuff. But once you've done that, just generally using the cameras, everything works great. You can review the footage, save the footage, turn the cameras on and off. You have full control, so you never really have to worry about it. So in other words, Arlo makes you jump through ridiculously annoying hoops just because you're a good customer. The more you buy, the more of a pain in the ass it is. So if you get more than 10 cameras, now you've now got to have a 3rd dummy account, or a 3rd account, 2nd dummy account. I don't know why they do this. I mean, there's a workaround. Everybody knows about this workaround. Nobody who doesn't want to pay for their subscription service is going to pay. But it's just Arlo's way, I guess, of tricking people into thinking they have to buy a service in order to have over 5 cameras. Anyway, that's my only beef with Arlo. Other than that, I really do love these cameras. These are the 3 to get. Hopefully they will continue to make all 3 of these for a while. They're still making the 2 and the Go and the Q. So I would recommend you buy them now before they discontinue any of these and force you to buy the new ones, which will force you to have to buy a subscription plan. These cameras are great. I've had this one since the beginning. I got this at the very beginning when Arlo first started selling cameras. Still works perfectly to this day. I've had this one for probably 3 years now, and it's been outside in the elements most of that time, and it still works perfectly. I've had this one for about a year now at the front door. It works perfectly. And I've got, like I say, the 2 others at other locations that also are subject to some extreme conditions, and they're doing just great. So I recommend these. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions about any of these in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.